In this video, we're going to take a quick look at how to create our first Python program using Visual Studio Code. In this case, I'm using a Mac, but the steps and the appearance is going to be the same if you're using Windows. I'm assuming that you've already downloaded and installed Python 3, and I'm assuming that you've obviously downloaded and installed VS Code, and that you have added the extension pack for Python. So go back and check the information for those things if you haven't done them yet, and then you can come back here and resume. The first thing we're going to want to do is make sure that we have a good folder and a folder structure set up for all of our projects, all of our work in this class. And your instructor may have a specific way of doing that. If so, you need to follow that. But if you just need kind of a generic one, or if your instructor doesn't care, I'm going to use the documents folder, okay, which seems to be kind of a logical place. It's sort of your main folder for all your various documents. And I'm going to make a new folder here. So on a Mac, I can right click or command click, I guess that is, and say new folder. I can also use the dots up here. It'll be similar in Windows. Just right click in some blank space and say new folder. And I'm going to name it after whatever the class is. In this case, it's CIS 156 or maybe CIS 256. And then inside of that, I'm going to want to organize it in a way that I can deal with later, because I'm going to end up with a lot of these Python files throughout the term. So typically what we do is just do one for each module. So module 1, module 2. I also like to have one folder that I just call a sandbox, which is when something comes up that I just want to try and mess around with. I can put it in the sandbox so it doesn't get mixed up. But the basic idea here is that when I'm working in module 1, I'm going to want to put all of those files in the module 1 folder, and that way when I need to go submit, I can find them easily. If I want to go back to a previous module, like, hey, I remember I did something like this and I want to see that again, it's all organized in a nice, neat way. Once I have this folder structure created and set up the way I need to, or the way my instructor has asked me to do, I want to open the entire folder in VS Code, and there are a couple ways to do that. The way that I prefer to do it, I'm going to find that CIS 156 folder or whatever class you're working on, and I'm going to grab that and drag it into VS Code. And VS Code is going to open that. It's going to make sure I'm opening a file that I trust, and since this is my own documents folder, I'm going to say, yeah, I trust that all the time. And now I have an Explorer view here, and I have all of my folders displayed. Now I'm going to go ahead and close this folder using the menu. The other way you can open this, so you see now that it's in my recent list, by default it's going to open the previous folder you had when you open VS Code, but it also has this recent files list. The other easy way to open this is just go to File, Open Folder, and then navigate to that location and say Open. So however we got there, I've now got my folder structure open and I'm ready to create a program. When I'm ready to create a file, the first thing I'm going to do is close this little welcome screen or panel that pops up. You can always get that back from the help menu, but to me it just gets in the way. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the module where I'm creating this, where I'm doing this work, and it's sort of opened up. You can't see anything because the module is empty, but now I want to create a file there, and I need to make sure I have that selected before I do. So there's a create file icon right there, a new file icon, but if I want to make sure that I'm getting it into the right spot, I can also just right click and say new file. It's going to ask me for a file name, and I'm going to just put first program, and it's very important, I'm going to put .py, and as soon as I type that, I get the little Python logo here, because that file extension lets VS Code identify that this is going to be a Python program, and it is going to be prepared to work with it as Python. And I'll hit enter and have that open up. I'm also going to minimize this Explorer window now since I've got my file open. I can minimize that. I can always get it back by clicking on that icon again. And the first thing I need to remember to do, a good habit to get into, is I need to start off by putting a comment block at the top that explains what this program is. And your instructor probably has a format they want you to use, and so in that case you'll use that format. But the general idea here is give us some basic information about what we're looking at. What is this file, who created it, and what does it do? And what assignment it's for, if that's applicable. And this is just going to output some basic information using print statements. That's it. Well, for me, that's it. It depends on what your instructor wants, but for me, that's it. And later we'll talk about there's some other ways you can kind of format this besides using those, you guys would call them hashtags, I call them pounds. We'll look at other ways we can do that. These are comments, so they're going to get ignored by Python. Beneath those, I can start writing my actual code. And so the first program we usually write is Hello World. This is kind of a tradition in programming. Hello World, and I'll save that. And I'm going to try running this. It gets buried in some other output, but it's going to open up this terminal panel at the bottom, and right there is my output, Hello World. So it's got some command line stuff that's going on that you can see, and sometimes students get a little bit confused by that, but that's where the output is happening. Once I'm done with this panel, I can either hit the trash can to kill it, I can hide it with the X, I can kind of just make it smaller that way. I'll go ahead and remove it there. So that's the basic program, and this run button up at the top is how I run the file. As long as I'm here, I'll show just a couple other quick things. This print statement has parentheses in it, and whatever we put in the parentheses is going to be what prints out. If we're going to put kind of words, and we'll learn more about this as we go, I have to have it in quotation marks, no big deal. And then I can have additional statements afterwards. So I'll say welcome to Python. And the idea with Python is that it's going to go through my code in order. So first it's going to print Hello World, then it's going to print welcome to Python. And it's going to print those, hard to see down at the bottom here, it's going to print those on separate lines, right? Hello World and then welcome to Python. That's different than some other programming languages where by default it stays on the same line. And you do need to know how to make that happen. So I will show that really quick. I can put a comma here. Notice that I'm outside the quotation marks. And I can say end equals, and I'm just going to put 2 apostrophes, or I suppose 2 quotation marks would work. This is a parameter called end, and it lets me specify what happens at the end of the line. By putting an empty set of apostrophes or quotation marks, I'm saying at the end of the line I want nothing to happen. So if I run that again, what I see is Hello World, welcome to Python, all on one line of output. And so that's going to be important for us to know how to do, because sometimes we want everything to stay on one line. That's all I really want to show here, so I'll wrap up. Make sure that you reach out and ask if you have any questions, and you can, at this point, get on with writing actual code for your class.